All right, hey, welcome. It's Chris Petri. Thanks for coming by. We're going to actually create this wonderful architectural rendering of a home. We're going to use our phone here, so we're going to work from a photograph like this right above our work. We're going to show you how to draw everything to scale with pencil and rulers and measurements. We'll have everything all covered here for the first hour. We're going to take our time and do a precise, accurate drawing of this scene. And that's what this is all about, precision, using a ruler and measurements to capture this wonderful effect of an architectural rendering. We're going to have a simple palette to create this painting, which is this palette right here. And then you might ask, why is this palette on the camera right now? We're just going to finish up by adding a little sky wash up top. So that's what we're going to do right now for the next second or two. But trust me, we're going to get right into the full video in just a second. I just wanted to add a touch of color. Maybe we'll use some Viridian green and some cobalt blue. So we'll use some cobalt blue, Viridian green, just to get a sky wash up here. It'll give the scene a finished look, as if we have a beautiful sky up above. I'll rinse off my brush as I always do, check off a little bit of paint on a paper towel or tissue, and then just go across the last bit here where it meets the ridge of the roof, just like this, and voila, look at that. So that finishes up the feeling of a sky above our rooftop here, and that's absolutely wonderful to finish this painting, just to give it some more of a sense of space where it's in a scene, maybe, you know, where you have some sky wash here, and we'll leave the rest just like it is. Okay, so we're going to get started now. We're going to do the whole painting again, start to finish, pencil drawing, scale everything nicely, show you all the techniques to get all of your measurements correct with your pencil drawing, and then as well we're going to cover all the simple watercolor washes that are going to be created from just three colors: burnt umber, burnt sienna, and ivory black. Only three colors we're going to use for this entire painting. And you're going to see how we're going to create everything from A to Z. Okay, so we'll be right back and we'll get started. Alright, so we're just going to pick up, and we just saw the finished painting. And again, this is a really fun, exciting way to paint. We're going to do an architectural rendering of this. It's kind of like a large house, a large home, but I just kind of, you know, took a screen capture off the Google internet, the Google search, just typed in architectural renderings of a home, a residential home, and then I found this, and I thought this looked really beautiful. And there's just something about, again, those beautiful, precise lines of this that make it really just an exciting thing to want to delve into and sort of work on. And not that we paint like this often. I mean, as artists, you could paint like this all the time. You could create very, very precise paintings. It's up to you. I mean, you're the artist. I know myself, when I'm painting, I'm usually I draw a little more freehand, so I won't capture like exactly perfectly straight lines like this. These are done with rulers and you know, precision. But this just looks absolutely incredible. So let's get started. And what I'll do is I'll just kind of do an interpretation of this. It's not going to be exactly perfect. I won't scale it like exactly to the picture here on my phone, but I'm going to try to keep it pretty accurate. Let's see what I can do here. I'm going to see if I can find a good ruler here. I thought I brought one over to my table here. Okay, here, yep, this is good. Let me see. Okay, I'm just going to search around a little bit here. Okay, this is a T-square ruler, and I just trimmed it down a little bit. I have a larger one, but I trimmed this one down because a lot of times when I used the larger one, it was bumping into my palette, my paints and all that, and my paint tray and things. So I just shortened this one up a little bit, trimmed it a little bit, and this looks pretty good. So I want to get a perfectly straight line across the bottom of the painting to start with. So I'll kind of just do that. I'll get a straight line across here, and that's going to be just a good starting point anyway. And I'm actually using a 0.7 millimeter mechanical pencil. It's a Pentel 120 A3DX 0.7 millimeter. And these are easy to find. Pentel, they're blue. The larger lead, the 0.9 is like a yellow gold color. So they have different, but you can find it for this one's a little bit finer point. So 0.7, I usually use a 0.9 most times if I'm drawing normally, but I want to go with a little bit of a thinner, finer point for my pencil, mechanical pencil on this. So anyway, we're working with our ruler. We're going to use a lot of the ruler on this. And what I'll do is, let me see if I can maybe, it's awful difficult to see the lines with this. Maybe I can see if I can, I'll just maybe measure some things here. I think I'm going to create this not using a scale or measuring it. I'll just kind of do it by eye in a sense. But I want to kind of look at everything. So we'll go over that too. As we go along here, we'll look at things as we normally do when we're breaking down a painting and looking at either a photograph, or if we're looking at a book, maybe working from a book, an art book, or maybe if we're just looking at real life, still life, whatever it is, we can just kind of look at things and pretty accurately say, like, you know, between the bottom of this building up to the top here, the halfway point is the bottom of this roof here. And this is a small roof that's, looks like it's a metal roof. These look like metal roofs here, standing seam metal roofs. And I think they're equally distanced, the bottom of the building to the bottom of this here and to here. And there's a way I can figure that out, but I think we can go with that. So we'll take our ruler and then we'll look at our picture here and we'll say, well, we can make our, we'll kind of use this as a gauge, right? We have a small bit of, we could even make another line here just to keep ourselves really pretty close to what we can get as far as accuracy. All right, so we have a line there too as well. And then we can say that from the ground level here, the very, very base of the building, up to this roof here, which is the main roof of the building, is about halfway between the top of this rooftop down to the bottom. So halfway. So if we go halfway, we'll make another line across up top here. And I'll leave about the same amount of room up here between the top of the roof and the picture space. Just roughly, doesn't have to be perfect. And we have that. Now we're saying that between the ridge of the roof, the very, very top of the roof, to the bottom of this building is halfway is this eave of the roof right here across this way here. Over here. So we could lightly do this one. So you might take your ruler and just measure halfway, find out the halfway point. We can measure it and say, all right, what is this here? This is exactly 4 inches. So 2 inches would be right there. So we can take that and then we use our square ruler. Actually, the better way to do it is to do this, to go on top here and say, okay, let's go down. This is exactly 4 inches from this bottom line. So from this bottom line here up to this top line here is exactly 4 inches. You could use that measurement at home if you're working on your watercolor paper. You could maybe start by making those two lines 4 inches apart. And then as you do that, then you notice, okay, well, this is the halfway point here, this eave of the roof right here, very, very eave of the roof. So then we can go here, put our ruler down and say, okay, well, that's 4 inches here. And then we can go up to the 2 inch point right there and do that. And then we can come over here and make another 2 inch point here. And then we can do those little dashes, as you can see. And then you can go across the whole picture and just line up those 2 dashes. And then once you have both of those dashes lined up, like this, I have them lined up both like that. Carefully hold the ruler down, and then I go right across the picture. Except I'm going to leave only a little bit over here. I'm going to do a light line over here. And then we have this section of the house, which is like a, I guess it's the main entry of the house. and it kind of protrudes out from the rest of the facade of the building. So we're going to leave that, and we'll just come from this way over here and just make the line this way. And we'll fill in the rest of that line later, but we want to make sure we have the majority of that line going across. We do want to leave it, leave a space here so that we don't want to draw a pencil line through this. Does that make sense? We don't want to draw the pencil line through this section of the building here, because that dark pencil line might be hard to erase, and we want to make a nice watercolor wash on this when we're done drawing it. So our goal is pencil draw this whole thing accurately, very, very precisely. As if we're architects, we're going to put our architect's hat on if we were an architect or an engineer. We're going to do precise lines, accurately, carefully measure things, take our time, and then we can paint. We can get some paint on the palette, on our small painter's palette here, and continue. But let's get all our lines in first. So the painting and the washes go on last, and they're very. This is very monochromatic. It's basically like an orange, like a burnt sienna, and some maybe ivory black. So we'll use ivory black and burnt sienna. And then we'll also use maybe a little bit of burnt umber, because I see these doors here look like they have a little bit of burnt umber in them. So those are the three colors we're going to use. So we'll have a very limited palette on this. And we're going to keep going here, but again, we just wanted to kind of measure this and get that halfway point here where the eave of the roof is to the top of the roof and to the bottom of the building. Now that we have that, we're really in pretty good shape. That's the main kind of divisional point of this facade of this building. If we're looking at it, we're calling this like an elevation view of a structure, a house, a building. Could be a commercial building. I think it's a home. But we just want to get the accuracy and enjoy that. So let's do it. We'll take our time. And so what we could do is maybe we'll put this in next, this feature here, which is like sort of a bump out from the building, it looks like a garage door even. This is probably a garage door. These two are probably garages there, I think. They do have those lines on them that look like doors like you would open up like this. Entry doors, but I think that's just, those are garage doors, and they put some interesting looking handles on the garage doors that I've never seen before. Could be sliding doors actually. Those garage doors might slide open like this. That's probably what it is. Those are handles to slide the garage doors open like this. So they don't roll up, they slide to the sides, I bet. Just taking a guess on that, but that's my best educated guess. And that's my final answer. So let's keep going. All right, so we could take a kind of an estimate and say, well, that's about here. And then we can see that this is, let's get this in. Now what I have to do is be careful, because that line doesn't go all the way up to the eave of the roof. It stops shorter than that where the rake edge of this roof is, or the gable feature there in the eaves. So what I'll do is I'll go about, well, I'm going to look here. This is, we can also take our ruler and put it on top of our photograph. Okay, I see what they're doing there. Let's get our next main feature here. This is halfway between the eave of the roof here and the bottom of this building. The halfway point is the underside of this roof here, which is a small shed roof. And it looks like there's a deck above that. A balcony, I should say. So it looks like the halfway point works out perfect with this ruler. So I can just put my ruler here. What do we have here? Let's take a measurement on that. Should be an inch. And it is. So from the bottom, very, very bottom of the building where it meets the parking lot or the ground level, up to the bottom of this eave here, of this small shed roof that goes across, is 1 inch. So let's do that. 1 inch. There it is. 1 inch up. small hash mark. Then I'll come over here, and I'll just maybe make it about halfway on the picture, another 1 inch mark, like that, and then I'll go across. Or I can even just hold my ruler here and say I'm going to go this much across, like that. So now I have that bottom section there. Then I'm going to go another very, very small amount for that roof in the top of the balcony. So I'll do it by eye and say that's about that much there. And then I will measure it first, or I'll measure it now, and we call that is 1/4 inch. So this is up 1/4 inch here, where this roof is right here. This small shed roof that's sloped. You can't see that it's sloped towards us, like on an angle like this, but it's kind of angled out a little bit from where the balcony is up here. The top of the balcony, it angles out a little bit, and it provides some cover for someone that might be coming out of the garage and they need to possibly stand under the balcony area here. That might be around 4 to 5 feet or so, the balcony. So that's probably a 4 to 5 foot overhang here. And you can see the shadow underneath here, so that kind of clues us in that there is a overhang here. There is a balcony up top here. So we have that. It's 1/4 inch, this right here. And we said from the bottom here to the bottom of here is 1 inch. And then from the bottom of this roof to the bottom of this roof here is another 1 inch. So that's the two 1 inch to 1 inch, 1 inch to 1 inch here. And then we have this. And then we can just maybe put well, we don't want to start putting any lines because we're going to carefully measure all these lines, these vertical lines here. So all these vertical lines that are going across this picture are all exactly precisely drawn in vertically, and they're also precisely spaced, the divisions between each of those lines. So that's what's going to make this really a great drawing and painting. So we have pretty much this section here done as far as the roof points where the parallel lines are going across. So we have level lines or parallel lines going across, and we're establishing those. And what I could do is we could remove this one just so we don't get confused. Okay, so I'm going to remove this one here, this line. And so this would be the bottom of the building here. And I want to make these lines a little darker so you can see them. So I'm going to start going over these lines again a little bit darker so that you can see them. Bottom of the building here. So it's not going to look exactly like this because I'm going with the darker lines with my pencil because I want you to see them as we're working together. If I was to draw them lighter like these are, so you would want to draw your lines lighter than I'm doing. Actually, you want to go really light with your lines at home when you're pencil sketching this and drawing this with your ruler and measuring it. Go super light with your pencil lines. You can always go over it to make it darker if you want, or you can go over it with pen and go over the whole entire, once you get everything drawn in like we're going to do here, all the pencil lines, you can even go over it with ink, like a small, very, very fine ink pen. And then eventually, after you put your ink pen on there and it dries for a little while, maybe like a regular super fine Sharpie marker, or you can make this larger if you want to, the composition. But the main thing is if you do go over it with a pen eventually, once you're done with all the pencil lines, then you would just erase all the pencil lines. And you just have your pen left, your pen lines, which would look really nice too. These look like pencil lines because they're a grayish color. So it does look like these are a grayish pencil, lead pencil lines. But again, you could go over it with the pen if you want. So we have the bottom of the building here. Then we have the bottom of the small roof, shed roof, that's underneath the balcony here. So that's another line there. Then we have the top of this roof, which is actually the top of the balcony floor. So that's the balcony floor there. And then up here is the eave of the roof. So I'm going slow. I'm hoping you're going to take your time on this. Just enjoy it. Break it up in a couple different. We'll take a break in a few minutes, but take a break on this. Maybe work on it 1 or 2 days, whatever your pace is, or maybe you're just going to motor right through this whole thing as we're doing it. Fine by me. You set your own pace. This is not something I typically do a lot on my channel, working with rulers and mechanical pencils and getting a real precision style art painting like this, but it's fun to do. It's fun to just, and I think what it'll do too is I'm hoping everyone will use your rulers a little more when you're doing your paintings and your compositions. Once in a while, bust out your ruler, get some straight lines. It's fun to use a ruler, and most professional artists use rulers once in a while, not all the time, but they do use them here and there. And I'll use them once in a while too on my regular paintings, as you know. Many of you that follow me for a long time, I'll break out the old ruler once in a while, and sometimes, a lot of times I don't, but I do use them once in a while, occasionally here and there. So I'm hoping that we can kind of work on this and have a fun time using our ruler and getting real precision, accurate drawing. So we have these lines over here. Let's take a break for right now. The next thing we'll do is we'll start working on this section here, the bump out of this. This to me looks like an entry, a main entry. So this might be where these doors open up like this, out. And these probably, like I say, is probably a garage door, and they open this way. And they keep them looking the same. They put the same hardware on them to kind of make everything look really symmetrical and pleasing. And all right, let's come back in a second, and we'll keep working. We'll work on this again, this section here next. All right, so we're moving along here. I thought to maybe take a piece of tape and draw in a few notes on the side here, just so that I can keep track of things, and I want you to have the accurate measurements as we're going here. And I just find that it's really fantastic that we have some really whole number measurements that worked out that way. I didn't plan on doing it I didn't plan that it would work out that way, but I feel like we're extremely lucky that some of these measurements are working out perfect. So I'll take a small Sharpie like this, and we'll just say here, the bottom of the building is here. Like that. And the Sharpie's running out. Let me see if I have another one. Incidentally, all my art supplies and tools and everything are down below in the comment box, comment section below the video, the actual video screen on this channel here. I like to put on my art supplies this way if you ever just want to go in and check out what I'm using and the prices and things like that. I buy everything on Amazon, so it makes everything easy. I just put all my links to all my supplies and all the things that I use on an ongoing basis. I pretty much get all my art supplies on Amazon because it's so convenient. I just order it and it comes to my house in 2 days or whatever, and I don't have to worry about anything. So this is the bottom of the building here, and we said it worked out perfectly by some magical way. Bottom of the building is here. This was 1 inch here. And then this was 1 inch over here, which is the top half here. Like that. And then this here was 1/4 inch. So we can't ask for anything better than that. I can't believe it actually worked out that way. You saw how we just started out, kind of like just starting out somewhere and drawing a pencil line, and it worked out just right. So now we also mentioned this was 2 inches here and 2 inches from the roof down to here. Let's just double check it. 2 inches, yep, and 2 inches, perfect. So then here we were saying that this here and this here, top of roof, was 2 inches. And then if we add up 1 inch and 1 inch, that's 2 inches. So this is actually the center point here. We could put a C there for center point. And that's our measurements for these level lines going across, these parallel level lines here. Now, next thing, we said we were going to try to maybe locate this. We could, sometimes we can always have some creative license as an artist. We could also maybe take some, this is a post-it note. We could take a post-it note and put it on this picture here. Almost just not really put it onto the phone, but just hold it next to the phone and make a little light hash mark and say, okay, that's the width here on this. And we can come over here and say, all right, what's the width on this here? It's the width between this point here, this plumb line that goes up along the side of this bump out here. That is one whole unit of this bump out over this way and a little bit extra. So we'll say this here, that's a little bit extra there. That looks about a quarter more. Just so we're trying to locate everything inside of our painting, our composition. There's more to the building on either side of this, but I just wanted to zoom in on one section so we don't have to worry about a whole entire house or structure or building. But if you work through this painting we're doing right now, this composition, and take your time, and we're working on this together, and after another hour maybe, maybe this is going to take us an hour, maybe an hour and a half at most, maybe 2 hours I guess it could take, but whatever, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever. If you can do that and get through this and kind of complete this and it comes out looking good, that means that you can basically take any structure you would want to and do this same process on a larger sheet of paper and do an entire building, an entire house, a mansion, anything you want. You could take any kind of architectural design like this and basically work it out. This, I have to say, I wanted to make more of, sometimes when we draw things, of course, in three-dimensional, I guess we call that perspective. So if we're drawing this is two-dimensional right now, basically. You feel there's some three-dimensional quality to it for because we can see the shadows and some shadows and things, but basically it's 2 dimensions. But if we were to turn this or something like that, you can see how it can get more complex if you go to a 3-dimensional drawing. So those are other things you can work on, later on if you want to. You can, and I'm sure you already use 3-dimensional drawings and things like that when you're doing your artwork, but with this particular type of work, when we're working with architectural type drawings, we would be more precise when we're doing our 3-dimensional drawings, and we'd have to use really accurate proportions and angles and the foreshortening and all these different things that go into perspective and all of that. So not to get too carried away with it, but suffice to say, if you do this and you complete this project, there's no reason why you can't really create anything that looks somewhat similar to this, a building, a house, any kind of structure, any kind of interesting, like bridges, skyscrapers, buildings, city scenes, houses, mansions, anything you can think of architecturally, you can do it. It's just a matter of going step by step, and we're doing it right here. So we're just looking at this. It's a little bit more. So if we go here and let's get this started here. So we'll get this bump out here, this main entry bump out started. We'll get that first line in here, that vertical line here, like this, like that. Okay, that's the first line. That's this line right here, this vertical line. Then I have to finish it. It doesn't go quite all the way up to the bottom of this roof area here. So I'll stop short there. Then I'll say, if I look at this, I say we can make it about this much here. Again, I'm just going to okay, now I'm going to measure this so we have this here. This is 2.5 inches. Works out just perfect. 2.5 inches. And I'll take the Sharpie marker. Two and 1/2 inches this way. And that gives us this main bump out here, this entry bump out. Now we said this should be about another 2.5 inches over. And if it's not perfect, we don't have to worry. Another 2.5 inches is here. So I can see that I actually have my sheet of paper is a little bit long this way compared to this. So I'm just going to go with this idea here of just trying to keep this at 2.5 inches here, the main entry here, and then we'll just complete the rest of this here. We'll bring these lines right over to the bump out here where the entry bump out is. That's the one line, and we'll carefully come over here like this and then do that. Okay, so now we have that roof there. Then we can take this line. We'll hold off on this line right now. Let's come over here. And then the way we're going to get this roof, this gable, is real simple. This feature here, the gable roof here. We're going to come up here and make our line going across just a little bit lower than this roof line here. And we're going to make a super light line like that. I'm just making the super light line so I can measure this. Now I'm going to measure 2.5 inches. So 2.5 inches, half of 2.5 is 1.25 inches across. So we'll go 1 1/4 inches. 1.25 inches this way, another 1.25 inches this way. That turns into 2.5 inches. So the 1.25 inches is the halfway point. Then we take that line, that 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches line here, hash point here, this hash mark, and we go up, straight up here, and we look at this gable roof here, and we see that it's not quite halfway. Let's see, it might be halfway. We'll use our paper again here and see. Okay, so if I take this here and say this is the roof feature right here, this to this here, and I come over here and I say this is, never mind those technical difficulties, top of the peak of that gable roof there, that's about halfway. So you can kind of see that. Those two lines that we just referenced there, that's about halfway. This line right here, the center line, which is the peak of this roof. So this is actually, doesn't quite look like it's halfway, but it's about halfway between the top of the roof and the bottom of the roof right here. So we said this was 2 inches here, the roof, total roof height. Take our ruler, we come down 1 inch. That's that point. Then we can just take those points and bring them right over to this line here we made over here, across here. We can do that. I'll do them light first. I'll do them lightly first, just in case I need to make a change, but I will go over them again darker so you can see them. Okay, that looks fine. So now I'll go over these a little bit darker so we can kind of see those. And we'll put a little bit of those overhangs on there too, the eaves over here that overhang. And what I'll do first though is just erase these a little bit, these bits of pencil there and there. This will be the bottom, like that. And I'll do one more line on top of that so that we actually make that rake board there, that trim board. like that, and then we'll do the same thing here. And then right now I'm going to lift this up. Same thing over here. And we go past this vertical line here. We have a little bit of an eave here, overhang with this gable roof here. And we're just going to make the rake board again, the trim board, so we can see that it's very clear and obvious they made that rake board, that trim board, visible when they were drawing this carefully. And then that gets a vertical line here. Okay, we can erase this line here now. Okay. Is it perfect? No, but it's, we're getting there. We have 2 windows here. Those windows are, I'm going to go from this center point here. So we could even, again, you could draw a very, very faint line just for yourself when you're doing this, and just draw a faint line right down the center of this entire bump out here, this entry bump out. And the reason we do that is simple. We can take that center line, and we're going to have a lot of interesting things that will work off of that center line. So from that center line, we're going to have the center of the doors where they open. We're going to have also the center line here where we can measure over to locate our windows on either side of that center line. So we don't have to get too fussy about the windows, other than we just kind of see they're about halfway across that space. If you split this, if we were to split this in half exactly like this, each of these windows is about halfway from that center point over to here, but it does favor being a little bit closer to the center line here. So if you want to just think of it that way, these windows are a little bit closer to the center line here than they are to the edge of this parallel plumb line here on these corners of this bump out. So we could do it that way. We say, well, the center point's here. You can just do a rough center point here, just to hold your, like a place, and say, okay, that's the center point of this half over here, let's say. And then we said the window is a little bit favoring over here closer to this. So maybe we start our window a little bit closer to this center of this. Like that. Now that we have this first window drawn in, then we can just measure from here to the center line that we kind of sketched in and see what that is. And that's 3/8 of an inch. 3/8 of an inch that way. Okay, and then we go across here, and then how much did we make our windows? You can use centimeters too if you want to. The metric system, that's fine. That's exactly 1/4 inch. So the window is a 1/4 inch. So we'll go over 1/4 of an inch here. So the window is a 1/4 inch wide. And it's also, and it's 3/8 tall. So I just make some tiny hash marks. You can just do small little hash marks as you're working out your windows. Obviously this is getting a little more kind of tedious, or a little more, painstaking to create the windows, but it's worth it. You just kind of work slowly, and again, if it's close, that's fine. So we just said that our windows were going to favor being closer to this center point a little bit each way, this way, and this way, than they are closer to this outside corner here. And that's all. I think we accomplished that. That looks good. And then we can just basically follow these lines across. We can see that this roof here over the front entry is about the same height as the roof over here where the balcony is, except it's a little bit lower because it's closer to us. So we'll take that line that's over here, top of this roof. We'll make a little hash mark there, and then we'll say we're just going to bring our roof down a little bit, maybe like 1/8 of an inch. And then we're going to go across like this, lightly first, until you get about the approximate of what you need. And then you say, all right, that looks good. And again, the same thing here. The bottom of this roof is a little bit lower than this roof here, a little bit lower. So we're going a little bit lower there. Again, I draw a lighter line like that. Then I say, all right, that looks pretty good. Maybe I have to make it a little bit thicker though. So I'll erase this line. I need to make this a little bit, I could even measure this quick and say, what is this here? This is 1/4 of an inch. So I just have to remember to make this 1/4 of an inch, which is a little bit larger like that. And once I do that, I come back again, recorrect it a little bit, just making it accurate as possible. And then we go across there. And then now that I have that, good, I can go in now, and then we can measure in from 1/4 inch in, 1/4 inch in, I make a hash mark, 1/4 inch in here from this outside corner. So from this outside corner here, in over to this roof here, the edge of this roof, is 1/4 inch down here. So 1/4 inch over here, make a little hash mark, and there we have it. And then we just put our plumb line there, our plumb vertical line there, and now we have our roof overhang for the front door. Now for the front door, it looks like we could kind of hold our ruler up and say, how is that front door? That front door is just a little bit in from this edge of this. So let's do that. Let's take this here and say, all right, in a little bit here, that's the front door. Plumb this line down here, outside edge of the window. So the outside edge of this window, I put a straight line down. That's the edge of the door here. In a little bit though, if you want. If not, you can leave it straight, in line with this outside windows here. Outside of the window here, that's where the front door is. I just move it in a little bit. Okay, so there we go. We got both edges of the door. We already have the center of the door. We made that light line before, as we said. Okay. And then we can put center lines on our window. We could do that by eye. You could measure it if you feel like you can't get that center line there. And then you just draw across there for the windows, the two sashes. And there we have that. And we have a little bit of a shadow over here, so I think looks like I might have, this looks needs to be a little bit wider. And there's a little bit of a shadow over here anyway, so we're going to put a line there for our shadow. We could see a dark shadow here along this entry door here. Alright, that's good. We will put that small roof feature over here. It's a small dormer on this side over here. So I'll just take this. It's kind of about, it starts about halfway up. So we'll go halfway up here. You could take a measurement on that too if you want. Say, what's the measurement of the rake here? Two inches, so halfway is 1 inch. And then that's where that roof starts over here, the dormer. Like that. And we'll put that dormer roof there. Like that. Okay, it looks a little bit awkward. Making that line too far. That line should be plumb with this one here. And we'll take another break in a few minutes. Okay, so now we have this rake board on each side of this feature here, the entry feature. And then we had this dormer roof over here. You can't see, it's sort of kind of minimal, but there is a roof over here. So we put that rake board there along the side of that. Small dormer over here on this side. That's pretty much a lot of the detail of this. Is actually we've got most of the detail. This stonework over here on this side of the house is a little bit higher than this roof here, the top of this roof, this entry roof, which is like a shed roof. So we'll just take that and say, all right, it's a little bit higher than that. We'll make that line a little bit higher. Like that. Okay. And we'll really, this will be a lot of fun. We're going to draw in some of these small stones and things, but that's toward the end once we're done with the main bulk of the features on this. Okay, so let's finish this line across here. And you can see it's really coming along nicely. We have a lot of the main features right now completed. Let's make the this next wall here and this garage door next. So I think I can come over about this much is safe, and we'll put in the edge of the garage door here, and then we'll come over here a little bit further. The garage door and the entry doors look about the same size. These are 1.25 inches, so I'll go over here and make sure this is 1.25 inches. Put my hash mark there. You could do another hash mark up here, 1.25 inches, 1.25 inches. Okay, and then we have our garage door here, and then 1.25 inches, 1.25 inches. 5/8 is halfway. For 1.25 inches, is half of 1.25 inches is 5/8. Again, if you're using the metric system, that's fine. You'll be doing everything with your decimals. And then we are since we're working on this section, let's get the bottom here. This looks like possibly some stonework, some really nice, maybe, or a foundation, maybe some stucco along the bottom of the house. So let's do that. And it's about, you can kind of see, it's about this much. It's not tremendous. It's maybe even a little bit less than that. It's about this much, so I'll be careful, hold my ruler nice and straight. And I'll just make sure that I don't draw through the doors. So I'll carefully look at this as I'm going. It's hard for you to see, so I'm going to lift up like this and try to. So this here gets this. This actually doesn't have that stucco over here. It's all stone over here. So I want to keep this accurate as possible. Okay, I'm starting to fatigue a little bit. We've been working probably another 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll just take another quick break, and we'll continue on doing the bottom of the building here where we have some stucco, and we'll put that line across, making sure we don't draw that line through the garage doors or through the entry door or the garage door. That should be fine. And then from there we'll do the door and the windows up here on this second floor where the balcony is. And from there we'll do the lines on the roof. You know, we're almost there. We're probably halfway done now with the drawing. A little more than halfway done with the drawing, and then once we're done with the drawing, obviously we're going to just put some wash on here, some real easy, simple washes. We'll show you how to do that with the light washes of burnt sienna, a little bit of burnt umber mix in there, touch of blue perhaps, and also some ivory black for the dark windows and some of the dark shadows. Okay, we'll be back in a second. Okay, so we are moving along nicely. We have a good pace going, and let's I think we're going to go with the windows and door over here next. So there's an entry door over here on the balcony, and it's situated right here in this corner. It's top of the door goes right almost just below the roof line there. Could be a little bit lower actually. I think I'm gonna change my mind on that and make it a little bit smaller, not as high up. Okay, that's going to be the door there. I'll make it dark so you can see. Hopefully these are dark lines that you can see. So that's the entry door, and then there's 4 panes of glass on the top half of the door. So I'll make a division line for the bottom half and top half of the door, and then just put a. Now this is the important thing here, is try to. If we were drawing this a lot larger, like on a larger sheet of paper, we can get more of these details in. But you can always use a little bit of white paint. We're going to show you that later. You can kind of see that you have some nice highlights on these sashes of these windows and highlights. So for us to sit here and try to draw that, it gets a little bit, since we don't have a larger sheet of paper and we're working on a smaller scale now. So we're just going to have to work with what we have. It looks like that this entry door here is actually set back further into the building because these windows look awful large here compared to that door. So what I'm thinking is that door is actually almost like down a hallway. So there's actually a balcony up here, and then that door is kind of mysteriously further back. So there's like a little hallway that goes in and insets into that wall there, along this wall here where the balcony is. So let's not forget that, because that actually adds to the three-dimensional quality of this, even though it's only in 2 dimensions essentially. So there we have that hallway we're going to put there. And then you can see these windows are quite large, and these windows line up almost with the edge of the garage door there. So I'll remember to line these lines up. And I'm using again a half ruler, a smaller ruler here. It's a 6-inch ruler. It's a little bit easier to maneuver around. And I think I'll make this half-inch. So this window's a half-inch wide by 3/8 high. Okay, so that's the one window, and then we have another window over here which sits a little bit beyond this edge of this garage door, like over here. So we'll put this one over here. I'll just use the height the same. Okay, the height's going to be the same across this way, and then again I measure this one. This one was half-inch across, like this, and 3/8 height. And then we just line these up. Keep the lines straight, plumb. That's our 2 windows. Now, as you can see, this goes over further because I'm using an elongated sheet of paper. So we'll just leave that as it is. And what else do we have? Okay, we have the crease in the roof over here. So it looks like there is a bit of a crease in the roof that goes up about halfway where that dormer is. So I'm going to use this dormer roof here, where this dormer roof meets the gable roof here. I'm going to use that, go across, make a hash mark there, and that's where I'm going to put my crease in the roof. And that crease in the roof is about quarter-inch. Alright, I'm going to do this by eye, about that much here. Okay. And I'll go above it like that. to get that second parallel line. Like that. That's that line there. And if you can imagine this, this roof, I believe, looks like this if we were looking at it in a profile view. This roof might look maybe something like this, and then come down like that. And then there's the overhang, and then the edge of the building. And that's the balcony here. That's the ground level. That's the roof, and it comes down like that, and that's the crease we just drew in there, right there. Something similar to that. Okay, so we have that completed, and we can maybe do a few more details here. So I'll start to do a few details. There's some supports underneath the balcony. I'll put a few of those in. The next one's centered on this window. And what I'll do is I'll try to get this same height across like this. Like that. They have some really nice details on this. They have 45-degree angles on the doors, so you could do some very, very fine 45-degree angles on the doors, like that. To get them exact, I'm not sure. You could measure, you could put little measurements on there. I think the easiest way to do these is to actually just keep the pencil lines in view, like this. And you can just slowly slide the ruler a little bit at a time, and just kind of keep it pretty even there. I started off on a, the only thing is I started off in the incorrect, I started off angling it the incorrect way. It should be this way. So what I do is to get a 45-degree angle on these boards, on these doors, I just take this point here, the very, very corners of each of the garage doors here, and start my first line like this. And then the only thing as I recall is I'm doing it this way here. And it takes a little bit of, patience here. You're just working at a slow pace, no rush. Take as many breaks as you need. It can get fatiguing sometimes, drawing very highly detailed precision lines. This can be, so take your time, do as much or as little as you want. Maybe if you find that you really, you dislike doing some of the details, you can leave some of the details out. You don't. That's the thing too. You're the artist. Leave details out if you want to. Don't feel like you have to do every detail I'm doing here. Maybe you just get the overall idea of everything, and then you create it from that point. But I would hope you'll watch the whole video all the way through and have fun with it and watch how we do this here. And then You know, like I said, you don't have to do the whole, you don't have to do, let's say, the drawing. You don't have to do the drawing like with every detail I'm doing. Like these, you could leave these out if you don't want to do the garage doors like this. Not a problem. Just make them, you know, create your own design on them. Maybe just they're going to be wood with a couple of like some ornate straps on them, like some hinge strap, you know, strap hinges. Or, you know, you can just kind of do it the way you want to. You can look online actually and research some door hardware, and you know, you can do all kinds of different things to, you know, circumvent having to do all the details like this if you don't feel like you want to put that much time in on all the details. But that's just up to you. And then so we have that door completed. And then we'll do the same thing over here. I'll go all the way across to start to get my first line over here on a 45. Close to it anyway. And then I'll just right down like this. Then I'm going to go this way. Make sure I keep the ruler in view. The edge that I'm drawing the pencil line, I want to keep that in sight, because then I can see if I'm making the lines too wide or too. That's kind of the key to this. If you can just keep the edge of the ruler where you're drawing your pencil lines, keep that so you can see it. Like, you don't want to be looking over the ruler. You want the ruler to be in front of you, so to speak. Like this. You keep the ruler in front of you, the leading edge of the ruler. Like that. And then you can just go right, zip them right along here. Again, I'll go all the way across the whole entire door on a 45 to each of the corners. That's my first line, like that, and then I start there, and then I can just go right along here. And no one's going to be measuring these lines or you know, being that critical of it. They should just be equally spaced as best you can get it, like that. Alright, good. Then we're going to draw the handles. Let's do the handles. Maybe we could just do an arbitrary number of 1/4 of an inch down and 1/4 of an inch up from the bottom. And we can make that the handles. And maybe 1/8 of an inch in. Like that. 1/4 inch down from the top, 1/4 inch up from the bottom, 1/8 of an inch away from the center of the doors where they meet. And then we can just go right across and use the same, like that. Alright, now we'll keep working these. This roof here has the those are the support brackets underneath the roofing on the edges. I forgot to do this. Let's do some, just, if you can get these pretty close by eye, like that. Oh, we wanted to do the, go across for the stucco on the bottom of the building. So I'm going to keep it like it is in the photograph there. Maybe I'll just use the measurement to get it exact. It's not quite 1/4. 3/16 maybe. So I went 3/16 up from the bottom of the building. Hold the ruler down. I know this is a little bit, let's see, we'll do it this way. I'll do 3/16 over here. I'm careful not to draw over the top of the door. Okay, and that's the bottom stucco of the building here, white stucco. I'm thinking there's probably lighting underneath these roofs here, these awnings, the shed roofs. Alright, there's some railing up here on the balcony. I'll put the railing up here like so. Like that. Okay, we'll take another break. I think that's we've done a lot of detailed work here, and it does take some patience and some. We need some breaks with doing this really highly we're concentrating really intently on what we're doing here, and so let's take as many breaks as we need, and we'll be back in just a minute, and we'll start finishing up the roof and a few of the other details. All right, let's work on our roofing. Our standing seam metal roof has, I was looking at my ruler here a second ago when I was, when I had the video off, and I noticed that 1 centimeter works out really good for the standing seam, or ½ centimeter per seam. So I'll make 1 centimeter hash marks here. And I'll put them right onto the roof actually, so that I don't have to worry about. We're already looking for lines on the roof with these hash marks, so I wouldn't put the hash marks above the roof line. I'd put them right on the roof where the standing seam starts for the roofing. And I'll just go right down here and start again. 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, 3, 4, 5. Then what I'll do is I'll put a dot in between each one by eye. I can kind of get these pretty accurate with the halfway point between the centimeters. Okay, then we'll just go right down the line with these lines. The only thing is to help with this can be a really great help for you doing this part is take a roll take some tape, some painter's tape, or some drafting tape, something that's not going to tear your paper up or anything, and then put this across where the roof edge ends, and that'll help you from going over with your pencil lines. You can do that anywhere actually in this whole bit of work with your pencil lines and everything. If you could also use some tape here and there to kind of block you from maybe going over certain areas that you don't want to. Like I don't want to block this over here, or I don't want to draw over the top of this gable roof here. So what I'll do is, I'll do the same thing. I'll put some tape there. So I'll put some tape here, like that, like this. And then you can also do that while you paint. Sometimes you can paint using tape. And then you can tape over whole areas and then fill in the other sections later, if that makes sense. So with pencil drawing, you always have you can always go back in and adjust things and so forth. So I'm going to go right down like that, and then just slowly keep my ruler plumb straight like this. If you have a piece of paper and a T-square ruler, you can use your T-square ruler and just slide it across the edge of the paper and get a perfectly straight line that way too. The only thing with that is you have to start, like your whole drawing has to be pretty much based on that. See, already some of my lines are a little bit off now because I'm doing it. I should be doing this with a T-square ruler, but I'll be a little more careful now. I'm kind of talking while I'm working. But you can kind of see how it really starts to look fantastic. Those precision lines, just nothing looks better sometimes than those great accurate precision lines. Just, it's like the dominant force of a composition like this, of a painting like this. It's the precision of it, is just the dominance of it, and that just gives it the great look and the pleasing, pleasant look of it. And like they say a lot of times, like art, like paintings, something has to dominate in a painting a lot of times. Maybe it's colors or line, like angles of lines, or it could be dark and lights of a painting, or could be like this, precision lines could be a dominant force in a painting. So a lot of times, let's say if your art is going into an exhibition or in a gallery, people are going to be captivated by like something that's dominating the painting, like something that just really makes them say like, oh wow, that looks just great. Like it's just, they can see maybe certain colors or color schemes that you're using, or shapes and lines, maybe it's something else. It could be anything really. It doesn't have to be something in particular really. Just something dominates the whole painting, And so, okay, there we go. Now we can lift up our tape and finish up a few sections if we have to. Like over here, I wouldn't freehand these. I would go back and then I'd go upwards from the line up, like that. This is not gonna put lines on here. That's a dormer here. We wouldn't see the lines of the roof here. So we wouldn't see the lines of the roof over here actually on this dormer. Above it though we do. Okay, so we have that. I might just go back and get a few of these. Okay, that's good. All right, let's get the these are a little bit tighter, the lines. So maybe we go with these, maybe, I think 1/8 inch intervals should be fine. So if we use 1/8 inch intervals on these over here, that should look good. But I'll do a test run first. 1/8 inch, 1/8 inch, 1/8 inch, 1/8 inch. Yep, that looks fine. I'll just put 1/8 inch hash marks all the way across, and then I'll bring my ruler back the other way, plumb, vertical, and then finish up the roofs over here, these overhangs here. Okay. Same thing, we could take some tape here so we don't go over. So we're starting our roof line up top on the top line here where our hash marks are. That's easy to kind of see where we're going to go there, and then we just put the tape there. And this way that tape is going to keep us from drawing over the lower wall there where the garage door is. And we just quick little line it up on the hash mark, go straight down quick, line it up on the hash mark, line it up on the hash mark, quick stroke down. Again, the tape is set. I put the tape on the paper so that I don't draw over the top of my garage door and garage wall. And we're just going to keep going across like this. Make sure I'm lining up on each hash mark. There we go. Then you lift up the tape. Oh, look how good that looks. Perfect. Okay, we'll do railing next. Well, let's finish these over here. And we said we were doing 1/8" hash marks. So I line up my first point on the ruler at 1/8. And I'm just going right down the line with some small tiny dots or hash marks for 1/8 every 1/8. 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8. Then I just take this, do the same thing, put the tape down, the drafting tape or artist tape, just so I don't overdraw onto the other parts of the building, and I just go right down the line. Okay, that's good. Lift the tape up. Okay. Now, we will, let's see, what can we do next? We've got mostly everything. We can do the shadow markings. So here, I'll do these lighter, but you can kind of see those shadows there, across here, on the underside of these eaves, the rake edges. I'll do a very, very light line, just so I can see it here. But I'm letting you know I'm doing it, so this way you'll do the same. Do a very light line, though, barely visible. You almost don't even have to really do it. You can almost just paint it in carefully with a very small brush, the shadows underneath these eaves. But I will put those shadow lines in. I also noticed that there is some... I'm just going to leave this area underneath the balcony area, the balcony wall here. It looks like there's some vertical siding there. I'm just going to leave that maybe like white stucco. Actually, let me do it the way the picture is here. So I will do these. Now for the increments of the siding. They almost look the same as the roof. I'll go smaller lines. Maybe if I go I'll make the artist decision here. I'm not going to really do anything. I'll leave the white stucco up here because we have the railings too. It's going to get like too many lines. So I'll do the railings, and I'll do those every 1/16 of an inch. So the railings will do every 1/16 of an inch. Very, very quite tedious here to do these, but I'll put little dots right along the top of the railing. And there's probably other ways to be creative about doing some of this line work. I think they have drafting tables and drafting mats where you can use a T-square and there's measurements on the mat, so you don't have to do all these hash marks. You can almost just, but that's for if you really find this is really satisfying and exciting for you to draw like this and create something like this, then you can always do some research on drafting. I'm sure YouTube has videos on like how to draft drawings and things like with like this, like precision drawing, architecture, engineering. Okay, those are very, very fine lines. I'll do the same thing. I'm going to put a separation line between the roof and the railings. A parallel line, about maybe a 1/16 of an inch. And then put this tape on that line. So there's a separation there. Like that. And then we'll just and this is alright. So what I'll do is I'm going to stop the camera right now and finish up these railings. I don't want to have to, you can kind of see exactly how I did this. I went with very, very fine 1/16 inch hash marks all the way across here for these railings that are up here on the balcony on the second floor. So instead of me doing this whole, it's going to take me another 5 minutes maybe. I don't know how much, but but I'll finish this up and then we'll come back and we'll keep working. I think we have a few more things to do, some shadows and things, but almost 100% done now with the drawing. Some more shadows underneath these, underneath the balcony, underneath this overhang, which is the metal roof, shed roof overhang. We have a shadow under here, which is the main roof, the eaves of the main roof. And then there's a really exciting shadow along here. So the sunlight's coming from this way across the picture. It's kind of like coming from this way, sort of like it's sort of in front of this here. But it's coming from the left to the right, or right to left if we're in the picture, standing there. Okay, I'll stop the tape and we'll be right back. Alright, so we're continuing on here with the railings. Now the temptation would be to sort of like say, I can do this without using the hash marks, but I wouldn't do that. Definitely stick with your hash mark plan going across like this, because again, the beauty of this painting and this composition is the precision. So if we start going off the game plan now at this point, it will not look good. Trust me, it'll be like you'll see everything looking great, but then if there's any section we tried to not precisely put down these lines with hash marks and measurements, and like we've done, if we go off that game plan, then it'll ruin the composition. It'll stand out. You'll see it. I mean, if you tried to do that just for an experiment, you would see it right away. It would look like something is really like wrong with the composition or the painting. So that's why we would stick with this. Just like if you were to paint draw and sketch and then paint a painting where it's very loose and flowing lines and very free looking, and then in one section of the painting you took a ruler and started drawing things in there. You would see that when you were looking at the finished painting, if that makes sense, and you would say, oh, that looks awkward or weird because it's not in the same fashion as the rest of the painting was created. So that's why probably we don't want to do anything like that, like try to just bypass doing the measurements and the hash marks. And here I'll put another light faint line across there where the roof is, the roof edge, the roof eave. Just a little bit of a detail there. We could put a few lines here where there might be supports for the railings coming down. So we would see those. And I think we're almost 100% complete. Let's do the shadows. The shadows should be important. We have a shadow here. We did that already. We did this one here going across. We just did a fine line, very light pencil line. At home, when you're doing this, when you're doing these shadows at home and creating the line so that you know where to put the shadows when you're working, when you're finally getting to those shadows areas, you want them to be precise in just the way we're going to draw them in. So that's the key right there. This one gets a angle across here. This one is here, pretty much halfway on the door. Okay, so there is, shadow comes down here. And it goes straight vertically, the shadow goes vertically straight and then across the door. Then this eave here, the shadow goes a little bit above the center point of the sashes in the window. So just a little bit above the sashes. All the way across. Lightly, just a very faint pencil line for yourself so you know where to put that shadow. And also under here, we put a very light pencil line across here to indicate our shadows underneath the balcony. And then we notice that where the garage door is, there's another shadow that goes along this way here. And then the shadow on the garage door is a little bit lower. Very subtle, but it really makes a difference. It shows you that the door is inset a little bit by maybe a half a foot or something like that, like 6 inches or so. So that helps to create some depth, some three-dimensional quality to it. Here we have a really beautiful shadow for this awning, this shed roof awning. So that starts about here. Comes down, goes about not quite halfway across the garage door, the entry door. Then it goes up a little bit, the shadow, and it goes across here. And then it comes down on an angle like this, on a 45-degree angle over here. So now these are the places where we really have to, later on when we're painting this in a little while, we're going to have to really focus on that, because that's like really important to get these shadows correct. And you'll see. And then we can also do some details for the windows, some header details across the window. They just go a little bit past each side of the window on the top. These I'm kind of putting in a little bit quickly here. Sills. There's some sills on the windows. They go past a little bit, just a tiny bit past the edges of the window. We could put a touch of shadow under there too, under the window sills on the windows. Okay, and we can do some stone work. So I'll just do I'm just going to match up to here, whatever I see here. I'm going to try to do these. These are some white stones, lighter stones, maybe picking up some light. There's a few over here. And then you can lightly put in some stonework if you want. It's totally up to you. Putting in the stonework is easy for me. I've drawn stone many times on you can look at the detail of stone here, but they're basically just drawn in with pencil or light pen, the stone here. So you can create your own stone shapes I might make something a little different here than what they have. So for stone, you can just put a few indications of stone here and there with your pencil lines. Haphazardly, that's the best way to describe it. Just here and there, a little bit here and there, you just draw some stone shapes. And that's really it. Some stone shapes which are kind of square, squarish, round. I would say one thing that really helps stone look really good, if you make them even square or round, so if you make them square looking, wherever there's a vertical wall like this, stonework is always set like this in a keyed fashion. So one stone large, one stone small, one stone large, one stone small, one stone large, like this in the corners usually, on the outside corners of a building. And then if you have like a more round stone, the same thing would be, you'd have a round stone there, round. Or more square stones. Like that, so like almost a, a keyed, kind of a keyed fashion. Like that. Okay, some more stones here. I'm just kind of taking my time here, we're moving along at a decent pace, but, I'm trying to get some stone type feel for this. Same thing along the windows, you'd see that keyed fashion. And that's good, I think that's plenty fine. Okay, we're ready to paint. It's been quite a process here to get the pencil drawing done, and always remember you can do more of an abbreviated fashion of something like this. You could do, if you feel like, you might watch this video one time, like through, and then you might say, oh, you know what, I think I'd rather do a smaller version of what Chris did here. So you could always, like, maybe just do, like, maybe half size of the half size of this, just to start out, to get a feel for it and kind of have, so maybe you can even just half size this and maybe just make it like here, or just, you could even start off like something more simplistic like this, a garage door and a couple windows in the top there. So you could start off more simplistically to get the feel for it, and in the beginning, of course, in the very first, maybe the first hour of this video now, maybe it's a little bit over an hour at this point right now, but you kind of saw how we just had to go through very, very carefully. Again, the whole thing was precision. We want to do precision lines, take our time, measure things, scale things correctly. It doesn't have to be perfect, but, we're trying to really match what we're seeing here, but there's no reason that you can't just take a smaller section of this, like maybe just this half or this half, or even just a smaller section like this. You can just do a small, like sliver, so to speak, of this type of artwork. So you could do that, and then you'd have all the same elements that we created: the stonework, the stucco at the bottom, the roofing, the shed roof, the upper main roof of the building, the house, window, the railings. So you can kind of have a lot of fun just doing a small sampling of what we're doing here. Maybe you're really just totally excited about it and you're like, oh, I'm doing the whole thing, and that's fantastic. And then if you do that and you're enjoying it tremendously, then hey, go for it. Get a larger sheet of paper and you can create a whole house. You can do a house or a building, again, a mansion, your favorite type of architecture as far as houses go. You could do, it doesn't have to be necessarily like this with, stonework, and it could be just regular wood siding or some other kind of stucco home, different roof, maybe shingle roofs you can put on, whatever. You could actually come up with your own designs, or it's really what you work from. So whatever your subject matter is, your reference photo, that's really what you go with. But if you're going to use a reference photo, I would definitely use like this. Use an architectural rendering for your photo. I wouldn't try to take a regular house at first. I wouldn't try to take like a regular picture of a house, somebody's house, your house, or home, or building, or apartment, or condominium, wherever you may live, and so forth. Or if you have like a place you visit or a favorite vacation spot, whatever it is you might be wanting to do, you can do that in the future. I would say practice the first few times. I would practice though doing the drawing and painting from an actual architectural rendering like this. So this is what an architect would, or an engineer might create for somebody. If they say, I want you to build me a home, what is it going to look like when it's completed? Then they would take this and they would do these drawings for a client to show them like what the house is going to look like, and different. They might want a few different renderings, maybe one with more stone, maybe one with more wood siding or brick, something like that. So in any case, let's get painting in just a few seconds. All right, we're continuing on here. We're going to start the painting. I have my small paint palette here. It's a ceramic dish. You can use anything really. So I'm just going to use this as kind of smaller. I only need a few colors, so this is going to be a monochromatic, really, almost like a burnt sienna and a little bit of gray colors, and I think that's it. But we'll start out with our palette like this here. I always have fresh, clean water, so I'll have my water container over to my right-hand side. Nothing fancy, just all my art supplies are down below, the ones that I use on a regular basis. So anything I use on a regular basis for my drawing and painting and my artwork is going to be in the comment section below, and I've used those items for many, many, many years, so I know they work, they perform well, they last a long time, a bargain for your money. I wouldn't put I don't put anything in there that I haven't used for like a long time to make sure that it works fine and really lasts a long time and is performs really well. So what I'll do is we'll use some smaller brushes for this. I'm going to use a small Princeton Aqua Elite brush for some fine points here and there. So that'll be and these are also, this one here happens to be a synthetic brush, which is nice. It doesn't hold that much water, so kind of lends well for watercolor painting, especially with smaller detailed paintings like this. Maybe I'll have a medium-sized brush as well. Trying to find something that's gonna maybe I'll use this flat brush. Again, this is a synthetic flat brush, white sable. This is a Robert Simmons brush. The brush number is 762B. I don't believe I have this below. I don't believe I have this either down in the comment section below, these two brushes, because I have so many brushes and things that I've, just over 20 years of painting. I've, built up a lot of different brushes, but these work really good too. White sable, synthetic brush, Robert Simmons brush, 762B. flat brush. So we'll use this brush, and I think these two brushes can really get us the fine details with this brush, and then the larger washes with this brush, and that'll be fine. We don't want to go with anything too much larger than this. You can kind of see that. Also, too, I might use this travel brush here, like this. So these three brushes, the travel brush, number 5 Da Vinci synthetic, as well, round brush, and then a flat brush. We wouldn't want to be trying to paint something like this with a large brush like this. This is way too large of a brush to try to do these fine details with this type of painting. So we always know we're going to use brushes that fit the painting. And you want to use the largest brush that you can for your painting. But this painting is kind of different, maybe, let's say, than most of my paintings. I like to use larger brushes and things are a little more free-flowing. Here, this is, again, very, very detailed, a lot of precision here, so we don't want to risk too much of trying to use a larger brush, and the next thing you know, we're kind of losing control of some of the washes on this. We want to really be very careful with our washes here. So we'll have our brushes, our palette's already set up. I will grab my bag here of warm colored paints. So I usually keep my paints, again, this is just something I often mention, I'll keep my paints in 2 different bags, Ziploc bags. So my tubes of cooler colors like blue, green, purple, in one bag. And then in the other bag I'll keep my warm earth colors and warmer colors like red, gold, any kind of orange, things like that in this bag. So that kind of, if I need to go get a color and refill my palette, I already know if it's a green color, I'm just going to grab the green bag, cool bag, or if I have the warm bag for any of my warmer colors. So we're going to use warmer colors here mostly. And we'll just go with this here. We're going to try to replicate this exact, as close as we can get it. So I think we said burnt sienna. So we have burnt sienna there. I did mention that we might have a little bit of, there might be a little bit of cadmium yellow there too, to kind of, I think we'll just keep it with the burnt sienna, keep it nice and simple for the warm red color, or warm orange. So that'll be fine. I think we'll just use 2 colors, really. 3. We'll use we did say burnt umber too. Burnt umber. And also ivory black. So I'll try to find my ivory black. That's probably in my specialty bag, which is all the other colors that I really don't use that often, that I really don't need to fill up on a constant basis. I don't use black all that much, ivory black or Payne's gray really, in my paintings, but occasionally I do. So let's see if I can find some ivory black here. And it's taken me a while to find this because a lot of the colors, some look like dark blues, can look like the black here. I should have it here somewhere. All right, I'm going to go across the way a second. And I found some Payne's Gray. We'll use Payne's Gray. I wanted to use Ivory Black, but I don't think I have any right now. I have to go to the store or order it on Amazon. One of the two. All right. Okay, so let's get these here. Burnt umber, just a little bit of that over here. We're not going to use much paint at all, too. Very little paint. mostly light washes. Burnt sienna. And then some Payne's Gray. I would use either Ivory Black or Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray might be actually nice to use with these two colors because these are warm, you know, quite a bit reddish colors. So Payne's Gray is a little bit of a cooler black. It has some blue in it, more toward the blue side. Now let's see if this actually... Okay, so this actually is hardened now. So this paint that I found in my supply drawer across the studio, this one's probably... Yeah, it doesn't have any, it's all hardened. So let me take a quick break and I'm going to look around my studio a little bit more. I don't want to waste more of your time by taking large amounts of time to actually find things. So I'll be right back. I'll just take a quick break, find some Ivory Black or Payne's Gray, and then we'll get started. Alright, I did find some Ivory Black. Very tiny bit of that. Okay, burnt umber, burnt sienna, a little bit of Ivory Black. That's all we need for these colors here on this. Alright, now there's some different things you can do when you're going to paint this. So we'll cover the different things you can do technique-wise. So you can use some artist tape, painter's tape. You know, they come, painter's tape, you can get them at big box stores, these rolls like this. The green, purple is really good, I think. Sometimes it's called frog tape. They have a frog tape. They also have 3M, this is the frog tape, the blue. This one's has a lot of adhesion, so this one might not be good. This might tear up your watercolor paper, but if you use the really, they call it like low tack trim tape. So they use it for trim inside houses when painters are painting and they're painting fine trims and they're changing colors of trims against the different colors of the walls and they have to tape things off while they're painting. They often will use these painter's tapes, and you'll find these again in the big box stores or even online. You can find them on Amazon, different painter's tapes, but you just would look for low tack. So it means that it's not a lot of strong glue on the tape which will tear up your paper. So this is low tack too. This is a Alvin tape. This is a Alvin 2300C drafting tape. So I kind of try to, sometimes I write down what the type of tape it is if something, I guess the inside of this tape might have peeled off or something, but this works really good. So let's do this. Let's use this tape, and this way we don't go off course with our painting. So I'm going to paint right up to the bottom edge of the roof eave there. So we're going to do our metal roof first here. And then, again, if we want to just make sure we don't have any problems with going over anything we don't want to, perfect time, we grab our tape and just let's tape this off like a painter would tape off a wall in a house. If he's painting, maybe someone wants their house painted and they say, I want the ceiling one color, I want the walls another, and I want the trim a third color. Then a painter will take tape and tape off each of those different areas as he's painting to make sure that everything stays really sharp and crisp, the lines for the painting. So we'll do the same thing. We'll tape off our and I'll go right where the trim is on the, and even if I have to be very careful, I want to make sure so I'm just using some scissors. I'm just going to tape this all off. I'll even tape off that small dormer on the other side over there by just trimming the tape carefully as I go. Doesn't have to be too fancy. You can always fill in some areas later after it dries. So I'm just going to get that last bit of dormer there, like that. So you can kind of see now, tape this whole thing off there. Now all we have to do is some fresh clean water. I'll start over here. Just a little bit of the time I put in some of that ivory black with my flat brush here, just a little bit at a time, just to get it so it's a little bit like we see here, just a little bit of wash, not too dark, just very light like this, barely. It'll lighten up a little bit once we put it on the paper, the wash, but I think that's pretty good. We can do this. You can always go over with another wash on top of it, on top of your first wash, but if you go too dark, it's almost impossible to remove and make it lighter again. So we'll just start here. And since the roof, the metal roof, is vertical, the seams on the metal roof are vertical. Let's go with that. Now what we do is we actually only want to paint up to that line. Forgot to mention that this is a little bit lighter here. As a matter of fact, let's go over the whole thing right down to the tape, and then we'll go over with another darker wash. And it's just a matter of doing this. Doesn't have to be accurate at all. You're just starting at the very top very carefully and going this way, and you just work your way across this whole bit of roof here, right down to the tape. One stroke per area. We wouldn't keep going over it and over it and over it. I'll pick up some more water, put some more water in here in the well. Then I'll get some more of that ivory black, mix it in so we have that same, pretty much that same mix there, and just keep working that across. That's it. And again, it's going to dry lighter. It looks a little dark right now, but you'll see it will, once it dries, it's going to be a little bit lighter. And that's it. And we just start right at the top, and we go down with one stroke. Start at the top carefully where that line is, and then come down like that. And we don't have to worry about the bottom line. We have it all taped off. And there we go. We're zipping right along here. Zippy-doo da the day. Okay, there it is. And we wouldn't touch up anything. Just the one wash like this all the way across, and we don't go in and touch up anything at all. If anything, you can touch it up once this dries 100% later, because we know with watercolor, if you go back in and try to touch anything up now at this point, it'll make ugly looking blotches and spots on your wash. So you want to keep that wash as pleasant looking as possible, so no correcting it at all. And if you want to go darker with this, you could go, again, a second wash over top once it's 100% dry, which means it's not even damp. It's got to be 100% dry. And we will do that later, actually. Or you can take a blow dryer and blow dry this off in like 2-3 minutes where it's completely dry, and then you can start another wash on top of this if you want. And we're actually going to do that because we did want to make it a little bit darker up here so that we have this bit of light here where the roof actually has an angle coming out towards us. We kind of talked about that when we did our drawing. All right, so let's take a quick break and let this dry. I'll use the blow dryer to dry this off really nicely, and we'll go over with a second wash. All right, we are back, and let's get started on the second wash here. Now what we're going to do is build up another layer of tape so that we don't paint over this section here, which is that little area where the roof does bend out a little bit like this. So we want to capture that. If we don't make this upper area a little bit darker than this area here, this part of the roof, it's going to kind of look like there's no angle to this part of the roof. So we want to make sure we capture that. So we'll just go over where that seam is there, just like that. Press only along where you're going to be painting up to. So you don't have to press the whole area of tape, just along where you. And you can also even just do a little bit of extra pressing of the tape with your brush a little bit if you want to. Make sure that nothing's leaking under your tape there. So that's what we can do here to get that a little bit better of a seal. And then again, it doesn't matter over here on this side of the tape. We're just wherever you're painting up to, that's where your tape would be tight to the paper. And that's good, it's fine. Then we're just going to do the same thing. Get some more of that ivory black. And I think if we just leave it about the same tonal value or darkness of the wash like this, if we use the same as we did the first time, we're going over a second time, so that'll just make it automatically darker. So I wouldn't go darker with your paint right now. I would just leave it the same as you made it before, and just by going over a second time and putting, let's say, a second coat on, a second coat of paint, it's going to look darker. It's going to be darker. And again, we start at the top and we just work our way down like that. And then you can even do a couple. I did see this in the it's a little bit lighter up here, so I will leave it a little bit lighter up on top there. So you can almost just go a little quicker here, paint right down onto the tape, and then you can sort of vary the edge here like this. And if anything, we want to make it a little bit darker right here. And that will give us the feeling of dark and light right at that point where the roof angles out like this. So you can make it a little bit darker there. And then we can quickly, though, we have to lighten this up here. So that's why I have a tissue. You can blot up a little bit with your tissue. You can rinse off your brush and dry off a little bit of water and use a damp brush and sort of blend that in a little bit there. So I guess what I'm saying is if you can make it a little bit lighter up top here, you could wet that whole area and then just blot across it like that. And that's going to make it look interesting. But one thing we do have to notice is we have to keep moving here. We can't take too much time. Watercolor dries really fast. The only way you can actually, if you're doing something like this, the only way you can really slow the drying process down and give yourself more time as you paint is you work in a cooler area of your house maybe, or just have the heat turned down a little bit, or whatever, however you can do that maybe. So sometimes I work in a warm room. Right now, the room I'm in right now, my studio is warm, and I have no control over the heat. The heat goes up from the bottom floors of the home I'm in, and I have no control over that, so it's always hot where I'm working, and I don't really like that so much, but I don't have any control over the heat. And I can't be opening windows in the middle of winter time, for the most part anyway. And there we go. Lighten it up top there, and it doesn't hurt. It has a little bit of nice, look at that. Some of that little bit of blotting with the tissue gives it a little bit of, mystery to the rooftop here a little bit. And again, we did say we want to go a little darker along this here. But this is where if you're going to add some darker wash, be very careful and do it quickly while this is still damp, and then that's it. You can't keep touching things up as you go. As you know, watercolor is a quick medium. It's a fast medium. Again, if you're working in a cooler room, it'll dry. It's drying fast on me right now. So, because it's really warm in here, I think I'm looking at the temperature. It's 76 in this room right now. So, if you're working in a room that's maybe 68 degrees, you'll have a little more working time. It'll be a little more favorable for watercolor. And I just did what I told you not to do by putting some, see, once you go back in there, see how that makes a splotch and a kind of a cauliflower. They call them cauliflowers, blossoms, blooms. Once you start fussing with watercolor, it does tend to cause problems. So there we go. We're going to have a little bit of a spot of more, that's why if you can just do the one coat and just leave it. But I did mix it up a little bit here, you can see. So it doesn't look all that bad. I'm used to looking at my paintings and my washes, seeing a lot of variation. I like that. But this painting in particular, I should have just left it alone by just doing the one wash across. And then, and then we did say we taped off this area. So now you can see how that does give us that nice, little bit of a lighter bit of roofing there, the metal roof as it's coming down. And we lifted this off here. And look at that. Looks good. Good job. I'm sure all of you out there right now are having a little fun time with this, enjoying the process. A little bit of paint just to touch up under here. So I just go with a little more paint under here. This is the dormer on the side of this roof over here. And that's where these are really great, these small fine point brushes. You could also use a needlepoint brush. I use needlepoint brushes all the time. I buy mine at the Alvaro Castanet website, and he has different sizes. I use 8 and 10s mostly. Number 8 and number 10. We'll use this needlepoint brush in a few, actually, because this is the finest point you can really get, and it's got lots of, you can load the brush up with plenty of paint and keep working, so that's kind of nice. Some of these smaller brushes like this, you have to keep going back and forth to the palette all the time to get as you're going. So that's where the needlepoint brush is great. You can load it up with some paint and paint for a while and not have to worry about going back to the palette every 5 seconds. Alright, so now we've got the roof completed. I think there's a shadow under here. I'll put the shadow under there like that. Okay, and then let's see. Let's work on these roofs here. So this is the shed roof, which is like basically an awning roof over the top of the entry door here. And then this roof over here is a roof, same thing, a shed roof, awning roof that will cover over where the garages are. So there's a coverage over here for people that might be standing along here by the garage. You have a little bit of 2 or 3 feet maybe of soffit over the top here. So this one here we might be able to, if you want to, let's just go on be on the safe side here. Let's utilize our tape. Let's tape this off. One there, and one up top here. And you can watch this video over and over again if you want to, work on something like this. That's all. Go slow and just, again, you can try a smaller part of this if you want to. That's fine. If you don't want to spend 2 or 3 hours, you can maybe do this in like a half an hour or an hour time if you just do a small section just to get the feel for it. But this is kind of nice here. I think I'll leave that trim so you can actually take your tape and really be accurate with your tape. Since we drew everything extremely accurate, very precisely, your tape works hand in hand and very well with the fine lines of our pencil drawing, because the tape is the same thing. The tape is a perfectly straight line, so it works out great that way. And then we rinse, get a little more water in our, there was a little bit of blue in there. So then I'll use this brush now. It's a little smaller. And we'll do the same thing. And we'll just go right across here. Better off, at this point, I'm going to go right across the top here like this. And get a good damp wash across here. And then what I'll do after that is I'll take my tissue, rinse off my brush, take off the water, rinse it off again, take off most of the water, just so I have a damp brush now, and then I'll just damp brush this across the bottom right here, just so it blends in nicely. But I want to leave a little bit of a highlight there along that roof area there. Okay, it's subtle, but it's definitely... And you can dry off your brush again. Maybe lift off a little bit of paint, like that. Might even work to just do a little bit of blotting with a tissue here and there. And that's fine. We can just, once we have that wash down, that's fine. We can move right over to here. And we'll do this roof here. Like that. Okay. A little bit of water, fresh clean water, a little bit of the ivory black. And I go across the top like that, with that little bit of a darker wash up here. Then I rinse off the brush, dry off most of the water so that the brush is just damp, and then just go across with that damp brush, and that kind of leaves a bit of a lighter wash there along that point there. That looks good. Okay, so now we've got all of our roof completed. The most difficult part, if we were building it probably. And now you could do this to make sure you, I think we said we were going to leave this stucco over here, white stucco. So you could put a W and put a W here and put a W over here and put a W here and a W here and then a W here and a W here. White. W stands for white paper, white of paper. So if you put those W's where you know you're going to want to leave just the white paper and you don't want any wash on there, you could do that beforehand before we start going in and doing the rest of the paint. So that's going to be a good thing. And I think I noticed here, maybe when we were drawing over here, we sort of lost track of this, but this is all stone over here. So I'll just go in with my pencil and just make sure that I'm going to make sure I do some stone over here. All the way down to the ground level here. And I should have probably put this measurement of 2.5 inches on this tape down here. Can you see that? Because this is kind of like the driveway area here. So I went over this with magic marker. So I kind of, you know, I was just, I guess, thinking that I had more room or something here. But I put this in magic marker. So now I can't erase this really. So really, I wish I had left this, just the white paper along this whole bottom area, but no sense of worrying about it now. In any case, we're going to keep working, and I think what we'll do is, I think I'm going to take a quick break, and then I think we'll start working maybe on the garage door and the front entry doors next. So let's do that. Let's come back and we'll work on those. All right, we're going to continue on here. So I'm just going to spritz these. I have a Holbein spritzer bottle. I just kind of spritz these 2 bits of burnt umber and burnt sienna there, just to activate those a little bit. And let's see. Where did we say we were going to work next? Oh, with the garage doors. I think we'll use a smaller brush for that. So the garage doors are sort of like the burnt umber. I'll mix in a little bit of that. This is a good thing about watercolor. That's kind of like a universal rule of thumb. When you work with watercolors, you'd want to always try to harmonize your colors throughout your painting. So you always want to, you know, sort of have all of the colors that you're using throughout your painting in all of the washes pretty much. That really is very helpful. It's maybe not like something you might do all the time, but you'll see here, look, I'm going to take this burnt umber, which is where the garage doors are, garage door and the entry doors. These are, you can see, are more of a brownish, cooler brown, like almost a brown with the, and that's, I'm going to mix this, some brown burnt umber with some of the ivory black. So we could call that like almost like a dirty brown a little bit. So we dirty up that brown with a little bit of the ivory black. And then now we have that kind of a mix. And it's good because that burnt umber by itself might look a little bit, you know, it just might not harmonize with the rest of the colors, but if you're going to add some of this ivory black to that burnt umber, then automatically it's going to tie right in with the rest of the washes we just did, which are the, you know, the standing seam metal roofs here. So now we have that. Now what we can do is start here at the entry doors, and you can even paint your paint strokes very carefully. You can paint them on the angles like this if you wanted. And I think up top here there's not many highlights. And then maybe down toward the ground level it gets a little bit lighter, the wash. Then I can rinse off my brush, dry off a little bit of the water on a tissue off the brush, and then I could lighten this up a little bit and just use a damp brush, because you can see it's a little bit lighter down here. It might just be a little bit, but it's kind of noticeable there in the photograph, and there we have it. And let's work on the next. This is the garage door. So I'm just being really careful here to use a small brush with a very good point. You can see how good that point is on that brush. That's the key here. You can go over actually a little bit into the walls, because the walls are sort of reddish brown too. But it's better to just kind of keep it to the lines if you can, as close to that. You could also blot a little bit. Okay, I'm thinking that looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit of that burnt sienna. I should have put that in there. Let me see if I can do that quickly. Rinse off the brush, dry off all the water off the brush, and just see, I already waited too long, and now I'm starting to make some funny looking spots. So that's what happens. We have to just remember, try to do it in, if you want to add a color to your wash, like an additional color like we were just saying here, if you can add a little bit of your burnt sienna and your burnt umber and a little bit of this to your garage door, it's going to look better overall. But the thing is, once we start painting these washes, we can't keep going back in and working on them. You almost just have to put the wash down once and then let it go, and that's it. And then if you want to, you blow dry it off, and then 2 minutes later you come back and you add a little bit of that burnt sienna like this. But I think we did add enough here, a couple bits of that burnt sienna like that. Very lightly, but okay, that is good. Now we can keep working. Let's see if we can. We'll start doing our burnt sienna. And then what I'll do is I'll make quite a bit of this, because we're going to be actually using quite a bit of the burnt sienna here for this stonework all the way around the front of this building here. And then we can also put a little bit of burnt umber in there, or even over here. A little bit of burnt umber over here. Mostly all burnt sienna over here. And then we can add a little bit of that ivory black, but just a tiny bit. Tiny bit of it though, into both of those. Just so that it has a tiny bit of that tint to it. Okay, and then we're ready to, you could tape off over here if you want. Probably a good idea if you feel like you don't want to lose track of the washes. And I have to leave a couple of those stones in the wall, maybe white, for like highlights. So I'll leave this one here. I'll go around this one, this stone here. There's another stone over here we're supposed to go over like this. And I noticed that it gets lighter as it goes down toward the ground level, the stonework. And then here, I'm being very careful to not paint over the roof there. I'm going to leave that white stone up here, like that. Oh. And I always have my hand resting on the board that I'm working, my hand's resting on the board, and then I'm just kind of using my brush, almost like a pen or a pencil, basically. And I'm just moving it around. And we just worked this whole area up here. And we work our way down. And then here we notice it's a little bit lighter. Maybe we'll take a little bit of the burnt sienna over here, add a little more water to it, and lighten it up a little bit. Okay, I'm going lighter here. We'll just leave that white for right now, here. This is quite a bit lighter. Blot that up with a tissue a little bit. And I always remember I have my W there on that white sections of where the stucco is at the very, very bottom of the wall there. And maybe I paint around those brackets. You could even do a couple splashes. I wouldn't advise doing any splashes on this particular painting. I'm so used to doing it all the time. This is already dry up here. And I'm just continuing to just work on these stone walls here. There's a couple of white stones there. Okay, that is pretty much good. So I think we have most of the stone completed now. We said we were going to leave this white stucco up here. I just wanted to change it from, it looks like there's vertical siding panels here on this wall where the balcony is, the second floor, but I just make it a little more simple for myself. Again, that's about being an artist. You can change things around a little bit if you want to. We wanted to keep it pretty strict to this, but I did do that one change. I think that's the only thing I really changed on this whole entire painting and drawing, was just leaving the white stucco up here. And again, we put the W's where we wanted to keep the white stucco, so we remembered not to paint over that. And we have some shadows we can put in. I think next what we'll do is we're going to put a shadow along this stucco wall here. Since it's white stucco, but it's actually, I think we can leave this just the white paper. And we'll just use our shadow lines that we drew in before for our shadows. We'll take another quick break. I think we should be finishing up though pretty quickly now. I think we'll just do the windows next. We'll put in the darks of the windows, and then we'll do, after that dries 100%. Actually, we should do the shadows first, maybe. I think we'll do the shadows first, and then we'll do the windows last, these last 4 windows. And then this door here, the window panes in that door there, in that alcove. It's like a little hallway in there, recessed in there on the second floor. So let's do that. Let's get all this completed as far as our shadows go next, but we have to let this dry 100%, so I have to take a quick break. We'll let it dry. I might use the blow dryer a little bit just to dry this off, the stonework. I think it's pretty much dry though. It's drying quickly. We did a light wash actually, so that dries usually pretty fast when you do a light wash like we did. All right, be right back. All right, we're getting there. Let's do the shadows next. I will probably I was just looking for more of a flat brush that'll fit the size of the shadow just right, and this looks about perfect. Maybe, let me see if I can find something. Yeah, that might be a little better. I'll empty out my water container just to have some fresh, clean water now, especially if you're going to be doing shadows. Shadows, you want to have them kind of translucent, transparent if you can, or you wouldn't want to use muddy water when you're going to create shadows. So here our shadows are really going to be gray, which is going to be the black, ivory black. Mix up a little bit of water in here. I just pick up some water with my brush, get a little bit of a fresh clean water in this well here, like this. So okay, I have a good bit of water in there. Then I'm going to pick up the ivory black, and these shadows are pretty dark, so it's going to be a little scary to mix up something this dark. But the shadows, if you can see here, they're very, very dark, those shadows, way darker than the roof. So, and you can always do a test. You can always grab some paper and put some of that on, the shadow color, and then let it sit for a few minutes. And it should have a little bit of the burnt sienna in it, in that shadow color, and a little bit of the burnt umber. Like that. And I think that's pretty good. I'm looking at it, I can tell, you can see how that's drying about where we want it. You can hold it up to the painting too, or to this, and see how it's pretty close. So we'll go with that, that's fine. And then we're just going to look carefully, all right, where are the shadows we talked about? First of all, let me do the fine one. I'll start all the way over on the left, so I'll get this fine point brush here. Actually, let's use our needlepoint brush. Okay. That might be too much, so if I went over the line of my shadow line, I just lift it up. Then I go back to that later, because already once you put a wash down and then you lift it up, it's going to go back to the same place if you try painting over it. So let's just not worry about that right now. Let's come over here and we'll start getting this shadow in over here. You can tape off your shadows too with some tape if you feel that that would work out better to get straight lines. And I noticed that this brush here that I'm using right now, this flat brush, it's carrying a little bit too much water, so I was probably better off just using this fine point brush here to do my shadows. Actually, even though it's more painstaking, I'd rather go fast if I can and get things done quickly, but in this case it's maybe this one here, it's a little bit too wide. So I'm just going to go with this now. Once I get the first wash down, then you can kind of like put in a little more wash over top. And then the shadow over here on the door goes over here like this. So I'm just careful again to try to get it exact with my pointy round brush. And then we said this here where the garage door is, the shadow goes in a little bit, it recesses further in, so you'll see that little bit of a lower shadow there. Maybe a tiny bit of some shadow there, barely imperceptible. Okay, and then we did draw in our pencil lines over here for our shadow earlier. I guess I widened this shadow out over here just because I made this one a little bit wider. I probably should have kept that one a little thinner. Can't always be perfect with this stuff. And since that W is there, we can paint over it. That's okay. I don't think we'll see it. You could erase your W's now at this point if you wanted to. mix up some more ivory black, some burnt sienna in there. A little more burnt sienna in there. Dry off a little bit on the brush here. And I was mentioned too, I have a book. It's down below in the comment section. A link to it. You can actually go look at my book, check it out. You can see every single page and every single painting and every single exercise in my book in about 2 minutes on YouTube. So I have a YouTube video that shows you my book. I cover all my techniques, all my methods, what paint colors I use, brushes, all of my art supplies pretty much I have in my book. My palettes, my colors, again, exercises, basic knowledge that you need when you start out with watercolor. So you'll have that too as well, with considerations for a watercolor artist when you're starting out creating paintings. You'll need to have a couple fundamental bits of knowledge, just a few to get started, and I cover those in my book as well. And again, you can look at every single page of my book in about 2 minutes time on YouTube. You see the video, and then you know exactly what you're going to be purchasing when you purchase my book. So it's not going to be a surprise when you receive it in the mail, and it doesn't, have colored pictures in it or something, or it only has 2 pictures in it. You'll see all the details of my book in my video below. So if you're considering learning more about what I do, my techniques, my methods in watercolor, you'll see a lot of my art, my paintings in there as well. All the paintings I've been doing over the last 5 years or so. I put all the best of my best paintings in there, and my best knowledge that I have for you. So we've created our shadows. They're a little bit warmer. I wish I had maybe used a little less burnt sienna, but I think it's okay. We could always go over that with a little bit of ivory black in certain areas to maybe make it a little more cooler looking, but I think that still looks pretty good. And where else did we have some shadowing? We have it over here. We have that accurate. We also wanted to do shadows under these rake boards. So I would just carefully go slowly across here like that for that shadow. Same thing here, but I would load up the brush and then I would take a little bit of the paint off the brush. This shadow's a little thinner. And I would just really carefully do this one because you want to leave that rake trim where the roof is white. All right. Shadowing over here on the front entry door. And again, just a simple... I go over a lot of my techniques in my book too, where I show you how to paint different painting exercises so that you can kind of practice the basics of vertical strokes going down, vertical strokes going upwards, parallel strokes going across. I cover that in my book, and I have exercises in my book so that you can kind of practice along with those exercises and kind of get a hang of that. Really important with watercolor is your brush techniques, to be able to work really accurately and efficiently as you're working through a painting. And this is a perfect painting to do too, to practice the real careful brush strokes and washes as we go. So we're really having a fun time doing this, and I think we're also going to need that larger bit of shadowing over here under the entry door. So I'll go across here first, and that's usually always darker, higher up under the shadow. It's darker up here, you can pick up more paint. Then we can dry off a little bit of the paint there, and that makes it a little less of a dark wash so that shadow lightens up a little bit there. And then right here, the top of the shed roof here. So we're careful to add in our shadows right where we see them, and we drew them in before with pencil. So if you can imagine, I'm not sure if you can exactly see every pencil line I have on here, but we did together actually draw in those shadow lines lightly with our pencil, so that we kind of know right where we can look at this photograph quickly and reference it, but we already have a light pencil line on our drawing to give us exact location. So you kind of look at this first, and you say, yeah, I do see where that's going, where the angles are. And then you look at and you say, oh yeah, there's that light pencil line we made before. And it kind of just all clicks together as you're working on doing something like this. For your shadows, especially now as we're finishing up. And we have the next thing we want to do is a little more burnt. This is ivory black, of course. We've been using that. And a little bit of the burnt sienna, but just a tiny bit of the burnt sienna. I wouldn't use too much there because now we can kind of see the windows are cooler. There's not much burnt sienna in the windows, so I think we'll just start over here. I'll just block in the whole window like this with the dark, which is like our shadow color basically. Okay, so we have both windows there. We'll do these here. Again, you can tape these off if you feel like you need to. Sometimes you might think that taping it off might help you to just keep the lines a little more square. But I'm using an extremely fine point brush here, of course. And it's also a synthetic brush which holds less water. So if you're starting out new to watercolor, best to use some synthetic brushes if you're going to be doing some fine, smaller paintings with fine washes like we're doing. Or you can just, if you have just regular sable hair brushes or natural hair brushes, you would just be tapping on your napkin or your tissue or a sponge more often when you're painting, so that you kind of check to make sure that you're keeping a damp brush versus a brush that's just flooding with water, because that can cause problems. Alright, so there we go, and I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to let this dry. There's a bit of a shadow over here, right under here. I'll take a tiny bit of this light burnt sienna and burnt umber mix with a little bit of the tiny bit of the, just like almost like a light wash, just to go over these fascia boards. So I'm just going over with a super light wash, just one pass with the brush, just so they're not the stark white of the paper. All right, I think that we're I would say, 95% complete. The only thing I think we want to do next would be maybe one thing here. Before we go to break, I'm just going to do a little bit of a darkening up of these handles on the on the doors here. Like that. And then maybe a shadow along these corbels. That can be effective, having a bit of some shadows along certain things like the corbels. That looks really good. Even underneath them a little bit, like that. Okay. That is really good. We are, like, again, 95% complete. We're just going to come back in, and if you can imagine, we're just going to darken up those top panes of those windows, because you can see those are darker, the top panes versus the lighter lower panes of those windows right there. So that's what we're going to do next, as well as over here, the same thing. We're going to just take almost straight ivory black and paint in those squares on these windows, and we'll also darken up those windows on that door, that entry door inside that alcove on the second floor there. And if we can do that, that's going to be kind of really, I think, everything. And maybe we'll use a little bit of white paint, some titanium white. Any old white will work, Chinese white, titanium white. Mix a little bit of that with a little bit of some, maybe some burnt umber in there, just to warm up the white a little bit. Maybe some ivory black in there. And we'll maybe do a few little bits of highlights on the windows where those sashes are and panes of the windows are. So that's the only thing we can do to really finish off with some fairly good details, but we don't want to start going too overboard with details. That we always know will sort of ruin a painting if we keep working on something over and over again, so, or keep going back in and adding more details. I think we're almost perfect right now. Again, just those few details. We'll come back and do that after we take a quick break, and we should be fine. All right, we are finishing up here. Let's do this. I'm going to reposition our painting here. This way we can kind of just see the final bits of washes that we're going to do. And I don't think we need to be zoomed all. So the phone is off the camera right now. I don't think we really need the phone at this point to photograph, because we're really pretty much, we've done 95% of everything. I'll just try to zoom in a little bit maybe and see if I can get a better close-up maybe of the painting. Maybe we'll do this. We'll put this here a little bit closer up. That looks good. And then we'll just retape this down. Always have your, I always mention this, please always have your artwork taped down so that it doesn't move on. Because if you can imagine, if you go to paint a brush stroke and all of a sudden the painting goes like this, then you're going off, you're painting over something you didn't want to. So whenever you're working in watercolors, just generally good ideas. So always just tape down your painting. Okay, so I just tape the bottom and the top, at least two sides. You can do four sides if you want, but this should be fine, just having the upper and the lower portion of this watercolor paper. This is Fabriano paper, the Artistico 140 pound 300 gram paper, extra white, Fabriano extra white paper, Artistico paper. I buy it in large sheets, the 22 by 30, and then I cut it down into smaller pieces, or sometimes I work on the full sheet like that, a 22 by 30. So now we have this situated a little better. We have a little bit of a close-up. I'll use my Holbein sprayer, spritzer bottle, just to activate our paints once again. And for this point, at this point, I don't even know if we need to use, I think we could just kind of, I'm going to just take the ivory black that we were using throughout our painting, and right now I think all we need is the ivory black with no, basically with, like, let's say almost zero water, just straight paint. And then we're going to use our fine pointed brush here. Maybe we'll use that Princeton Aqua Elite. I think that was the one we were using before. That seems to have a good point. we've been using it, so we'll just continue to use it. Okay, and you can see it's got a great fine point there. I'll just rinse off my brush quickly, dampen the brush a little bit. Okay, so that's straight paint pretty much. There's no water in that paint really, except for the damp brush. And then we'll have our tissue handy. It's good to, when you're painting the final very, very fine details, it's best if you kind of just get your brush into that straight paint and then take a little bit off the brush, the paint, just so you can get the paint loaded into the brush and then take off a little bit of the excess paint like that. And then we can go in and do our darker washes. And we said the darker washes were going to be right here. So at this point you can use this part of the painting that I'm creating here. These final washes here, the darks, the final darkest darks we're going to do. I just added a tiny bit of water just to get that to flow a little better, but hardly any water at all. Pretty much, again, straight paint. And I'm just going to do these top panes of the window here. And I'm going to work left to right this way. That's another big thing with, that's another like crucial part of watercolor, is if you can paint left to right, if you're right-handed, or if you're left-handed, you would paint right to left. Especially doing small details like this. It just helps it so that you don't lean back into your paint when you're moving across the painting. Okay, so there we have it. These are the darkest dark tonal values, or the darkest dark paint of all the paint washes we put on this entire composition, this entire painting we're doing right now. These are the darkest darks. Take a little bit of paint off there. And again, I think we'll just go with this, like this, here. Like this. Now what I'll do is I'll reference the photograph on my phone one more time. And I'll show you what I'm kind of just trying to do here. So now I'm trying to get those darkest darks, which are the windows. So I'm going to do, these are a little darker here. These are especially like darker, you can see there. So that's what I'm just trying to do, just get those last bit of darks where the windows are, and I think that's it. That's really all we're trying, and then maybe a little bit of, again, we'll mix a little bit of white paint, just a tiny bit of white paint. We'll show you exactly how to do that, a little bit of white paint with a little bit of tone in that white paint so that it's not stark white, and we'll create some of the window panes in this. Okay, so I'll leave that right there just so we can reference back to it if we need to. So we'll just leave that there for now. And then also we needed the so that is the door in the alcove on the second floor, entry door. That's the panes of the window there, and then we're going to put some panes of trim. We're going to put the actual panes in with some trim, some white paint. This here looks pretty good. We have the dark shadows right there that are across the top. And what else did we have that we said we wanted to do? We have this over here, fine. So right now we're in great shape. The only thing we have to do is let this dry, and it's already drying a little bit because it's pretty much almost dry now because we just use straight paint. Hardly any water. So if you're using just straight paint, it dries extremely fast because there's no water, which is going to keep everything damp for, 5-10 minutes or whatever it is, or a half an hour. So we are pretty much all set to use some of our titanium white. So right now we're just going to use some straight titanium white tube paint right out of the tube here. We'll put it right in the center of our, just like that. We don't even need that much. We'll take a little bit of that. We'll come down in here and we'll mix that around with a little bit of the burnt sienna and the black, the ivory black. And the only thing is here, let's dry that up again. We just want almost straight paint though. We don't want hardly any water in there, so let's just do that again. A little bit of ivory black straight paint though, no water. We'll pick up some of that burnt sienna there. Alright, so that's kind of it's the titanium white paint, straight titanium white paint. Just like that, out of the tube, squeeze a little bit in there, take some out, mix it over here. Pick up a little more maybe, get yourself a little bit. We're not going to use much at all. So you have the white straight paint here, and then you just pick up a touch of straight paint here, black, a little bit of ivory black, and a touch of some burnt sienna here. And another touch of the black. Okay, so that might be just right, maybe a little more white. And there we go, light, super light gray, almost like a white, off-white. And then we just have our point. We roll our point around on our brush like that. So you have a nice good point. You roll it around your brush like this. Get a good sharp point. And then we'll do our window panes. So we'll just go across here like that. One there. One here. Okay. Then over here, that's the door in the distance there. Like that. And then I'm going right over the pencil lines. So the pencil lines that we created before when we drew our windows in, these are easy to see, the pencil lines that we drew earlier, because we only went over with a light. A little more white. Lighten it up a little bit. It seems like it needs to be a little bit lighter. Like that. Like this. And then up top here, the top part of the panes of the glass is going to be a little darker, so we'll pick up a little more ivory black, make it a little darker gray. So we're basically mixing grays now. So we're graying that up a little bit, darkening it up, that highlight color, and just that little bit there. Okay, it needs to be a little darker. And then you can always go over with a little bit of darker. Wash like that. Dry off the brush. Pick up a little more. Dry off the brush. And just dab a little bit on there. And that is it. Last thing we can do, we were just kind of matching up the windows here with that darker color, and then the panes of the window, the panes of the glass. Everything else looks fine, and we will actually, at this point, we can, since the painting is pretty much dry, We can erase the W's here, where the white paper is. I noticed maybe this could be, this line over here could be a little bit darker. So I'll just put a little bit of a darker line over here. Other than that, I think everything looks good. So thank you so much for coming by, watching. I'm hoping you'll subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Enjoy the process we have of going very carefully through this entire tutorial from start to finish, from the very beginning, measuring all of our layout points for our drawing, scaling it as we go, using measurements. We kind of worked along with working with this photograph here. So we did everything that we would want to do for this painting to get everything done incredibly accurately, and that was our point. We wanted to make sure that we stuck with our doing a very efficient job of capturing all of the details, the very, very precise details of this painting, this watercolor painting of architectural features of this house. So basically it's an architectural rendering of a house, and we did a portion of the house, not the entire, but there's no reason why you can't do an entire house elevation view of a house, let's say the front of a house, in two-dimensional layout like this is here. If you want to get more advanced, you can use three-dimensional layout of your drawings, using perspective and following that kind of a. We'll do videos in the future of that. We'll actually, in the near future, we'll create a three-dimensional architectural rendering of a house or a building, or perhaps something like some city scenes, maybe a streetscape. But in any case, thanks again for watching. I hope you'll subscribe again. On the right-hand side below, there's a subscribe button. All that does is just, when you click on it, you'll see our new videos as they come out each week. We're creating new videos in watercolor every week here on my channel. You'll always see new subject matter, whether we're painting seascapes, architectural renderings like this, landscape paintings, flowers, still life with, fruits, vegetables, flowers. We're doing portrait paintings at times, occasionally, figure painting. We're also creating wonderful beginners paintings. So we have an Extreme Beginner series videos that we put into my channel here. It's called Extreme Beginners. If you type in Extreme Beginners, Chris Petri, into YouTube, you'll see that we have hundreds of Extreme Beginner videos, which are basically more simple palettes, more simple brushes, simple art supplies. When you just start out, you don't need to be, starting out with fancy gear and fancy brushes and all that. You start out with the very preliminary tools of the trade of watercolor inexpensively. So I just want everyone to know that's what we do here on my channel. We do both the beginner's level paintings and tutorials, as well as the tutorials for more advanced students who are interested in learning more about watercolor and doing different things in watercolor to just change up their repertoire on this channel. All right, so we cover everything A to Z watercolor here on my channel. Great to have you along, and we'll see you soon on the next video. Okay, bye bye.